There is no monument in history that generates as much speculation, near religious devotion to pet theories, and wild imagination than the Great Pyramid of Giza. From professional Egyptologists to the average man on the street, it seems everyone has an opinion about who built it. The ancient Egyptians, aliens, Atlanteans, a lost civilization? What does the evidence say? Egyptologists believe the Great Pyramid was built by Khufu, son of Snefru, the founder of the 4th dynasty and Egypt's most prolific pyramid builder. By the time of Khufu, Egypt had a tradition of building pyramids dating back to the reign of Djoser and the Step Pyramid about 100 years earlier. The bureaucratic infrastructure had since that time shaped itself in such a manner that Dr. Mark Lenner made the claim that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. The pyramids built Egypt. The level of organization necessary for these massive building projects forged the civilization itself. Despite claims to the contrary, the pyramids did not spring out of thin air. Their development was slow, from pit burials to mastabas, from step pyramids to true pyramids, and eventual mechanisms of solar function in the 5th dynasty. In that evolutionary process, the ancient Egyptians left behind significant evidence informing us of their trials and errors, methods of construction, site organization, dates, tools used, and even the villages in which they lived. In that organization, each worker was assigned to a work gang, or a file as we call it, or even larger Aper teams, and it is the rough inscriptions these groups left behind that points us to our first piece of evidence: quarry marks. Quarry marks are small inscriptions normally daubed in red ochre, found on the side of blocks or between joints and stones. Sometimes they tell the workers which way to align the block, or in the case of those found above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, they assign stones to particular work gangs or files. Found in 1837 by Howard Weiss, the inscriptions contain the names of these files, proud of their service to King Khufu. In Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock devoted quite a few pages to the suggestion that Howard Weiss may have forged them, and they have since been treated as suspect in the alternative history world. What's nearly always neglected, however, is Hancock's 1998 position statement after inspecting the quarry marks firsthand. I'll read the first 3 points in full. 1. Regarding the quarry mark hieroglyphs in the relieving chambers above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, I have rightly been taken to task for uncritically supporting Zacharias Stitchin's forgery theory. I reported this theory in Fingerprints, published in 1995, and in Keeper/Message of the Sphinx in 1996. 2. As an author and researcher, I hope that my work will always be in progress and never finished or set in stone. When I come across new evidence I cast doubt on theories that I previously endorsed, I'm ready to change my views and admit past mistakes. 3. As John West kindly reported in his open letter to Stower, that is Martin Stower, I have changed my views on the validity of the forgery theory. The relieving chambers are strictly off limits to the public and are extremely difficult to gain access to. I had been unable to obtain permission to visit them prior to the publication of Keeper/Message in 1996. However, in December 1997, Dr. Zahia Was allowed me to spend an entire day exploring these chambers. There were no restrictions on where I looked, and I had ample time to examine these hieroglyphs closely, under powerful lights. Cracks in some of the joints reveal hieroglyphs set far back into the masonry. No forger could possibly have reached in there after the blocks had been set in place. Blocks, I should add, that weigh tens of tons each and are immovably interlinked with one another. The only reasonable conclusion is the one which Orthodox Egyptologists have already long held, namely that the hieroglyphs are genuine Old Kingdom graffiti and that they were daubed on the blocks before construction began. These quarry marks name multiple teams associated with Khufu, sometimes using his Horus name, Mejedu. The two lands, Purifiers of Horus Mejedu, is one team. The Purifiers of Horus Mejedu is another. The Friends of Khufu is yet a third. and the followers of the powerful white crown of Khufu is the fourth. The significance of this cannot be understated, however, as the Horus name was not understood at the time of Ice's discovery and therefore impossible to forge. As Hancock admits, they are authentic. The pyramids do not sit on the plateau in isolation. They're surrounded by hundreds of tombs belonging to family members and officials. High-ranking members of Khufu's court like Hemiemnu, Ankef, Khufukaf, and family members like his sons Kawab and Djedefre, who was a teacher of wisdom on par with Imhotep and mentioned in the Harper's Song and Papyrus Westcar. Piece by piece, tomb by tomb, they build a picture of frenzied activity at Giza during the 4th Dynasty and point strongly to the site itself being used for the burial for the kings under which these men served. Just as the pyramids are not isolated on the plateau, neither are they isolated architecturally in their design and evolution. The features of the Great Pyramid existed just as we would expect them when tracing the development of the 3rd and 4th dynasties. The Great Pyramid's most significant feature, for example, the Grand Gallery, had engineering predecessors in the corbelled vaults of his father's pyramids at Dashur and Meidum. In fact, we even know the original architect, Nefermat, a son of Snefru and brother of Khufu, who served as vizier for both kings until his son, Hemiemnu, replaced him and continued the family tradition. The supposed mystery of the pyramids doesn't exist. We know of Nefermat's wife, Idit, and her role as priestess in the cult of Bastet, the goddess associated with cats. We know they had 3 daughters and as many as 12 sons. We know their names, what they did in life, and the same for their sons and daughters. The point here is not to flood you with genealogies, but to illuminate a small portion of just how much is known. The ancient Egyptians weren't winging it, and Egyptological conclusions aren't guesswork. There is tremendous evidence available, never mentioned on the Discovery Channel or discussed in pop culture books superficially covering the general topic. The corbelling feature of the Grand Gallery is found above the passageways in the Meidum Pyramid, where it's first evidence that they were experimenting with this relieving system. It continues in the Bent Pyramid and again in the Red Pyramid. Nothing is out of place. The family line of Nefermat was building on a system of knowledge and advancing its expression from one pyramid to the next. We don't see things out of order. In fact, we see things just as they should be in Khufu's reign and his pyramid. Since the rise of the alternative history genre, opponents of academic orthodoxy have cited the lack of an inscriptional narrative of pyramid construction as evidence for their various wild theories, from power plants to grain silos, alien beacons to Noah's Ark. In 2013, this came crashing down with Pierre Tellet's discovery of a series of papyri in a sealed section of an ancient harbor that was only used during Khufu's reign. When assembled as a whole, the papyri reads as an incredible journal of an official during Khufu's reign who worked under Ankef in the construction of the pyramid. The horizon of Khufu, or Akhet Khufu, as the ancient Egyptians called the pyramid, is mentioned on nearly every line as its author, Merer, details his work of transporting casing stones for the pyramid and his overnight stays in the harbor that once existed in front of Khufu's Valley Temple. Zahi Hawass calls this find the greatest archaeological discovery in Egypt of the 21st century. And indeed, it serves as the nail in the coffin to alternative theories for pyramid attribution, solidifying it to Khufu's reign. While alternative theories focus on the pyramid in isolation, claiming the primitive Egyptian civilization could never have constructed something so monumental, they neglect entirely to study that civilization. They ignore wonderful individuals like Hemiemnu, Ankef, Sheshem-Nefer, Nesut-Nefer, or the foreman Merer. These aren't invented names. They're real people who told us what they did. Real people who left behind the stories of their lives on their tombs. We know who their wives were, the names of their children, and the roles they served under the king. There is no mystery. The Great Pyramid was indeed built by a now vanished ancient civilization, the ancient Egyptians. There's a link in the description of this video that has an excellent reading of this papyrus on YouTube.